This meeting is being recorded.
What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is we're slowly reaching that 100 goal mark of getting 100 episodes out there. We've been having a blast with all different artists from all genres and from all over the world, and kind of doing a little throwback, but not a little throwback. If y'all remember Brian Goyette, good friend of mine, huge Minnesota Vikings fan. I did have to throw that out there, but down in Nashville, Brian has another good friend down there, James Ervin, and he is a hell of a songwriter, hell of a singer, and that's who I have on today. James, how are you today, man?
Good, brother. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, of course. I always just appreciate artists just taking time out of their day or night just to kind of sit here and talk about their story through music, because at the end of the day, like I always say, is you can listen to a cool artist or you can listen to a really cool song and hear the lyrics and stuff like that, but sometimes at the end of the day, you don't know the background of these artists. You don't know the background of these songwriters. And it's kind of just cool to really hear that and kind of hear who they are as people and who they are as artists in a more in-depth look. So always appreciate you just taking time to kind of do this tonight.
Absolutely, man.
So kind of just hopping right into the first question, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Is where did singing and songwriting kind of come about for you? Where did playing the guitar? How did just everything come about? Because I know for some people it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and all that fun stuff. But then I like to compare it to someone like myself who really only started songwriting and producing and all that back in 2018, which was only 5, 6 years ago, whatever. So it just, where did everything kind of come about for you?
Yeah, so I grew up on a dairy farm in a small town in Ohio. My family still runs that to this day. And there was just always a radio playing the same country station 24/7. And it's still, I guarantee it's playing right now. So I've always been listening to country. I always did like the singing talent shows at the local fairs and things like that. But as far as like writing goes, just my friends and I didn't start really playing. I always had a guitar, but I didn't really like ever learn how to play it. It just kind of was there, and I like to own a guitar, but I didn't really start playing it till like high school area. Some of my friends and I just would like sit around and play like the same three chords over and over and call ourselves guitar players. But uh, I don't know. We started writing here and there, and it was fun. And people around, nobody. I'm not from like a music town. There's not really a live music scene, so we would just play at like the fairs and things like that, and people enjoyed what we were writing. So I really started to really get into it, and it wasn't until I was chasing a hockey career for a while. So it wasn't until I found out I wasn't going pro to when I really started taking it serious and realized like I want to do this for the rest of my life. I really want to chase it at least. I mean, hopefully I can do it for the rest of my life, but I'm going to give it hell here for a little while. And it's just really something I enjoy to do. And it's a way to express yourself. And that's really why I like to do it, because I don't show expressions too often. So through my lyrics, that's kind of a way to do it.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's awesome, man. It's so cool to always hear the upcoming and how people started. And it's actually cool. I had no idea that you kind of had the hockey background and everything, because that's, I mean, besides football, I was telling you before we started, big Minnesota Vikings fan, but huge Washington Capitals fan too when it comes to hockey and everything. So
Yeah, you
always,
had the wall there.
yeah. So always huge, just loving stuff like that. But kind of going back to what you said is like when you were playing hockey and then kind of going transitioning into the music and saying, hey, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I love. I always live by this quote is you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And I mean, it's just, you look back now and obviously you're just doing great things now. And it's so cool to just say, hey, like, this is what I love doing. I love writing music. I love playing music. And this is what I'm going to try and do, and whatever happens kind of happens with it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, country music is just such a big thing. Everyone knows that's what I grew up on. I've said it more than a million times on this interview series, is like that 90s, early 2000s, and then all the way up to current country is this. There's so many inspirations out there that I look up to in the music business and stuff like that. And that leads into this next question is, who are some inspirations that like kind of really inspired you or do inspire you to this day when it comes to singing and playing music?
Uh, I don't know if there's a person. I'll say something that like inspired me to really do this is like there's a couple songs like Austin and Three Wooden Crosses that you could be 8 years old and understand it from start to finish, and it makes you feel something. So like that's what inspires me is to, I mean, still to this day when I listen to Three Wooden Crosses and I've listened to it, I don't know how many times, I get chills every time.
Yeah.
So like the urge to try to write something that gives somebody that feeling is really what inspires me. I mean, there's plenty of people like, but first and foremost, all I really want to be is a songwriter. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to be the next Morgan Wallen, like half this town wants to be right now. Like I'm good staying home writing music for somebody else. So I mean, there's songwriters that inspire me, like Jordan Walker, who was originally in the Walker Montgomery duo. I mean, he's written a ton of really good songs from Luke Combs to like Colby Cooper and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a handful of others too, but I mean, just good songs are what inspire me, not necessarily a person.
Exactly. No, and that's awesome, man. I mean, it's so cool. I love the whole songwriting process, and I just love hearing stories behind the lyrics. Is just from start to finish where you can just sit there and understand the whole thing, and you can just sit there and picture the whole thing is really what grasps me to really love like a songwriter or a singer, like whoever is writing the song or whatever. It's just those lyrics can be super powerful when you pour your emotions into it. And at the end of the day is what I always say as a songwriter for as myself is if I can go out of my way, yeah, it would be cool to touch a million different people. But if I can go out of my way to touch that one person or those two people, then at the end of the day, then I can say, okay, you know what? I wrote a good song here. Like I connected with someone, and that's kind of what the goal is at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, 100%, man.
And talking about the songwriting process is what I'm going to get into here. This is always one of my favorite questions, and I do have to quote Garrett Walker, who was on the show. Y'all go check out some of his music. Super, super talented dude, and loved having him on. But he said this quote perfectly: "Is the songwriting process is like a puzzle. Whether you have a 500-piece puzzle, 200-piece puzzle, whatever, you have all these pieces scattered on the table, and you're trying to figure out what fits where." Eventually you start putting the border together, then you start putting the middle together, and you're like, okay, like now I know how these pieces kind of entwine and connect. And by the end, you have this full masterpiece, you have this full song, you have this full thing that you can say, hey, look what I just created. Now what do you guys think? So at the end of the day, there is no rhyme or reason to the songwriting process, as you probably well know, and as I well know, and any songwriter knows. But what is kind of your process like when it comes to writing music?
Well, it starts, at least I say all the time, but at least with me, it starts with an idea. I have my notes and my phone is full. I couldn't count how many there are, whether they're good or bad. If I think of something, I write it down because you always tell yourself you'll remember it. And then the next day you're cussing yourself for not writing it down. So I learned that very quickly. So I write everything down. And then, I mean, like you said, there's no necessarily like one way to write a song. I mean, we've started with choruses before. We've started with the first verse. We've gone first verse to bridge. I mean, there's it just kind of, if you get stuck, I try not to sit on anything too long. If you're
Right.
stuck on a certain place, move on, come back to it. Because I mean, I've had writes that take 2 or 3 times to get a song done. I've had writes that take an hour.
Yeah.
So again, there's no, like you said, rhyme or reason or certain way to write one. And I still haven't completely figured it out. But like I said, I try just not to sit on anything too long. If I'm stuck, move on, come back to it, things like that. But for me, it always starts with an idea. And I like to, I mean, a lot of people try to do this, but I like to have double meanings. So like
Yep.
the song I'm gonna play you has a double meaning later. And I like when people read the title and you don't really know what it's going to be about yet. And then when you hear it, you're like, oh wow, that's cool.
Right.
That's what I like to do. So that's what a lot of my ideas stem from, is those double meanings. And then you just kind of roll with it, whatever comes to you. A lot of times the song doesn't even turn out how I expect it to when we started, but I still like it. And that's what I try to do, is I just write stuff for me, stuff that I like. And then if it ends up touching other people, great. I don't try to write for somebody else. I write what I know, what I grew up on, and I go from there.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's awesome, man. That's what one of my favorite questions by far on the show is just asking that because it's just so cool to really hear how people kind of go about things. And it's always just funny to me because it's either people start with the melody and like start playing the chords, or some people like myself start with the lyrics and go from there and then do the chords. So it's always cool to kind of really see. I always like wait into anticipation, just saying like I'm waiting to see if you say, "Oh yeah, I start with the a couple of chords," or if I start with the pen and paper. So it's always cool to hear that.
Yeah, mine's always lyrically. Luckily, I have some friends that are pretty good with mixing in some different melodies there. But unfortunately, when I write by myself, it's a lot of times the same 4 or 5 chords over and over. But
Yeah.
and I'm not a guitar player. I'm a songwriter, and lyrics are really what I focus on. And I obviously need to get better with melodies, but I really like telling the story. So I'll leave
Yeah.
that to my friends for a while.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, just the whole storytelling aspect, like I said before, is really what draws me into an artist. And obviously, that's why I have you on the show, is just because some of your songwriting that you've done with Brian and just some other artists that I've seen you do songs with too is just the storytelling is just fantastic. And they're all great songs. And there are a lot of artists out there nowadays, as you know, a lot of songwriters, a lot of singers, and it's hard sometimes to really get your name out there on social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the Spotify, Apple Music, all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, kind of this is getting into the fourth question, and this is why I always say, thank God I'm asking the questions, not answering them, because it's always the hardest one, and definitely up there with my favorite besides the songwriting question. But with all these other artists out there, with singers, songwriters, whatever, is what makes you at the end of the day compared to all these other artists?
Hmm. Well, and I'm not saying that there are people that do this, but like I said before, I try to write for me. I don't write for anyone. I don't write for the radio, which maybe that's why I don't have anything on the radio. But I don't know, man. I mean, to start, there aren't too many of us from Ohio down here. I write with the only other one that I've met. His name's Cody Garrett. I'm writing with him, I think, later this week. But we wrote a handful. He actually was the co-writer on this song. I'm gonna play here in a little bit, but I don't know, man. I mean, I grew up on a dairy farm in a college town in Ohio, and I write about that a lot. Again, I write what I know. I don't write what I don't know. And I mean, I don't know if that separates me from others, but I think staying true to what I know is what's going to hopefully get me somewhere and not really change. I mean, everyone listens to Hardy, kind of like the still ain't sold out thing. Like everyone says they plan on doing that, but like, man, I really just want to write like real life stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's ends up being catchy or not, I write for the lyrics to tell a story, and I think that's kind of what separates me a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I totally get that from you. It's just you're sticking to your roots, you're sticking to your guns, whatever you want to say, however you want to quote it. And it's just you're doing what you want to do, you're sticking to what you know and how you want to be. And that helps you shape into a better songwriter because you know who you are, you know what you want to do. And that's why I always love asking that question, because it does kind of separate the people that know who they are to the people that are still working on their craft and who they want to become. So it's always
Yeah.
definitely one of my favorite questions to ask on the show for sure.
Yeah, and something else. I mean, again, I'm not necessarily trying to be an artist, but there's so many down here, and you've been to Nashville. There's so
Yeah,
many kids that are trying, like I mentioned before, trying to be the next Morgan Wallen. And I mean, me personally, I just don't think that's the route to go. Be
exactly.
the next you. And people have said that before, but like there wasn't a Morgan Wallen before Morgan Wallen. There wasn't a Luke Combs before Luke Combs. There wasn't a Riley Green really before him. Like they made
Exactly.
it being what they are, not trying to be the next of something. And every kid here right now, and I have a bunch of friends that have mullets and stuff. So don't get me wrong, I love them. But like there's so many kids that I mean they even look alike right now, and it's hard to if you don't know them to really like pick them out from one another until you hear something that's really really good. So um, I just think again trying to be the next you is better than being the next somebody else.
No, I mean, you couldn't have said that any perfect. And I honestly, there's nothing else I can really add to that. It's just be at the end of the day, just be you, do
Yeah,
you, and don't try to copy other people because then you go down a whole nother rabbit hole. And then you just, sometimes it doesn't work out that way when you start copying other artists and start doing what they're doing. It's like when I hear covers of songs, especially, just to kind of throw this out there real quick before we get to the fifth question, is I look for how the artist changes up from the original version, because that's what I want to see. That's the kind of songwriting and kind of artistry that I want to see from artists, is how did they make their own music? Because you can do a good cover of Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Hardy, whatever, but how do you make it your own is really what it comes down to. And it's just like I said, like you just said a few minutes ago, is just be the best version of you, be true to yourself, and do what you can. And that's awesome.
100%.
So kind of getting to the fifth question here, kind of before we hear some live music from you, which is always the fun part, is kind of looking towards your future real quick, is what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and kind of what else can we expect from you down the road?
Yeah, so I guess I don't know if it's a goal, but something I'm working on short term. The song I'm going to play here in a little bit, I've actually been in the studio with, so that'll be my first single. I don't have a release date or really any plan, as when I moved down here, I never even planned on releasing my own stuff, but it's just a great way to get, for people to hear how my writing skills and things like that. So I'm going to get some music out there, whether it's a couple a year or things like that, songs that I really like that I wrote. And then as far as long term, I guess, I mean, getting a publishing deal and being able to really make a living out of writing every day would be cool. Because, I mean, right now I have a full-time job like most people do. And then unfortunately, music is when I'm not working. So I write in the evenings. They sometimes call for long days. I start work at 7. Sometimes I'm writing till 10 or 11. So it does make for long days. So I'd love to get that publishing deal and be able to really do this full time and really put all my hours and all my effort into that. Other than that, man, I don't have much. I don't really care to sell out arenas. Obviously, I mean, that would be awesome. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
touring's not for me. I mean, I got married last August. I have 3 dogs.
Okay.
I like being home. I like being in Nashville. I moved here to be in Nashville, not to travel the whole country. I did plenty of that when I was playing hockey when I was younger. So I've seen a lot of it. I want to be here and really just write for other people, and that's really what I want to do long term.
No, and that's awesome. At the end of the day, I honestly love when people say that they don't really care for. I mean, obviously, you do care for selling out stadiums if you ever did come to that point. But at the end of the
that.
No, absolutely. But it's so cool. Obviously, I can't wait to see what else is coming for you, man. You're a hell of a songwriter. And I'm just super excited to see what else is coming for you in the future.
Appreciate it, brother.
Of course. So that kind of concludes all the questions that I got for you today. And now kind of for the good part is hearing a song from you. So I'll let you kind of set up, do your little thing. And other than that, if you want to let us know what song you're doing, kind of how this song came about. And other than that, man, the floor is yours.
Move some stuff around here. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna play a song called "Running Back." I wrote this with Cody Garrett over a year ago, actually, and it's one of the first couple songs we ever wrote together. And again, we connected because we're both from Ohio, and you don't meet too many people here from Ohio. And I mean, he just came with this idea. This is actually one of the only songs that I play at rounds that I didn't have the idea for, at least. So it's interesting that the one that I'm going to cut as my first single was someone else's idea. But it was just Cody and I. A lot of times you're in a room with 3 or 4 guys. It was just me and him at my kitchen table. We wrote it in one go, and it's called "Running Back," and I'm gonna play it for you.
Awesome.
Here it goes. I can grill a mean steak while I drink my whiskey neat. I keep a Glock 9 tucked in a case pocket knife with me. I got a 4x4 with some dents in the door and a motor I built myself. And I don't own a pair of jeans without a score ring. In high school I was a running back. I broke a couple records. I'm rugged like John Wayne, tough like leather. You seeing what you're getting from my boots to the brim of my hat. And I've never been the type of guy to get tied down, but there's a pretty girl I'm wrapped around, and when I'm gone too long and she's home alone, I'm rushing to get there fast. She keeps me running back. She keeps me running back. She's got me getting pedicures and drinking red Merlot. And One Tree Hill really ain't that bad of a show, you know. I take a nice staying in, taking care of my skin over drinking under neon lights. 'Cause of her, I'm not the guy you knew a long time ago. But don't you know I was a running back? I broke a couple records. I'm rugged like John Wayne, tough like leather. You seeing what you're getting from my boots to the brim of my hat. And I've never been the type of guy to get tied down, but there's a pretty girl I'm wrapped around, and when I'm gone too long and she's home alone, I'm rushing to get there fast. She keeps me running back. She keeps me running back. I still drink, I smoke, I hunt, I fish. I ain't found nothing my hands can't fix. But there's a side that she brings out of me, and there's a side that I can't quit. Don't forget I was a running back. I broke a couple records. I'm rugged like John Wayne, tough like leather. You seeing what you're getting from my boots to the brim of my hat. Just like that, I've never been a type of guy to get tied down, but there's a pretty girl I'm wrapped around, and when I'm gone too long and she's home alone, I'm rushing to get there fast. She keeps me running back. 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 Yeah, there's running back.
I mean, awesome job, man. I mean, it doesn't take long after the first chorus to really just start jamming out to that. That's why I always put myself on mute, because when a good song comes on there, I can't help but not sing along. And by the second chorus, I was already singing every word to it. That's just such a great song that you guys co-wrote together. And I kind of like you said earlier in the show, is like those double meanings, is the actual physical running back as they were, but then running back to the girl too is always just kind of cool. And it reminds me of another song from Noah Hudson, who was on the show. He has a song called The Weekend. It's kind of another double meaning there too. And it's always cool to hear songs like that, because it really just makes you sit there, listen to all the lyrics, and just really figure out what it's all about. And that's just such a great song, man. And thank you for performing that tonight.
I appreciate it. Can't wait to gotta get promoting it, like you said, TikTok and everything. I'm not big on TikTok yet, so I need to be, and I need to start promoting it and getting it out. But it'll be out sometime next year. Again, I don't know when, but it will be at some point, and you'll know when it is.
No, absolutely. When that comes out, man, I will definitely be promoting that, helping you out, posting it on my stories and whatever I can, because that's just such a great song, and I just can't wait to see what else happens for you.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. So kind of before I do my little outro here, is where can we find you on social medias, just so people can kind of check out some of your stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, so my Instagram is JimmySnips4. I believe, see, again, I'm not good on TikTok. I believe my TikTok is James Ervin Music. Don't quote me on that. And then my Twitter is also JimmySnips4, but it's not really much about music. So Instagram's really my prime social media right now. And then when I get this single out, it'll be just James Ervin.
Perfect, man. Again, James, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit here and talk about your story through music.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you so much.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point. Is Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern. We got new music, new artists, new songwriters. You never know who's going to be on here, never know where they're going to be from. And y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in tonight.